As of this moment, we are at war.
It was one of the most riveting shows on television.
Are you alive?
In 2003, Battlestar Galactica began an epic adventure hurtling through the galaxy, pursued by an evil army of Cylons, in search of a mythical planet called Earth.
We shall find it.
Now, 14 years later, EW invited the cast to Austin, Texas for an unforgettable reunion at the ATX Television Festival.
This today, I think, is the first time in a long time that all of us are right here.
Probably the strongest we've been in the amount of people that work together.
Yeah, and it's exciting. And everybody's doing great, right? That's part of what's so cool, right?
Yes.
The following program.
Modern style.
As we approach the 7th millennium of time, the human race at last will find peace.
The story of Battlestar Galactica began back in the late 70s with 41-year-old TV producer Glenn Larson.
Glenn Larson is one of those names that if you look at all the credits that he did, it's astounding how many shows he kind of had a hand in. Anything from Magnum P.I., BJ and the Bear, Knight Rider, it's crazy. And one of the kind of floating Hollywood rumors about Glenn Larson is that he borrowed liberally from a lot of other source material.
Use the Force, Luke.
In 1978, the country was in Star Wars fever.
Red 5, I'm going in.
This was a huge thing, so all things space were very popular, and I think the show kind of came at the right time.
Glenn Larson's original Battlestar Galactica premiered in September 1978 on ABC.
My friend, we are on a peace mission.
Budgeted at $7 million, it was the most expensive first episode ever made at the time.
Are we getting this on the camera?
People loved it, but, you know, it kind of was a flash in the pan in the sense that the network canceled it after 21 episodes.
2 decades later, Universal owned the rights and wanted to reboot the series for the Sci-Fi Channel.
I got a call from David Icke, who I knew as a network executive who had a production deal at Universal in, I think, February of 2002. And he said Universal was looking for someone to come in and reboot Battlestar Galactica, which was a title in their library. There had been a couple attempts to do it, and they'd all failed for one reason or another. And David wanted to see if I was interested, because he knew that I'd been at Star Trek for a long time.
Ron D. Moore, who was known in the industry at the time as kind of the go-to sci-fi writer, from everything from Star Trek The Next Generation to Deep Space Nine to the Generations movie, he had his bona fides.
I said, give me the weekend, let me watch the original pilot, because I hadn't seen it in like 20-some years. Went to Blockbuster, got a VHS tape. Ask your parents, some of you that don't know those references. Watched it over the weekend, and I was very struck by the idea of doing that show at that moment in time, because when I watched that pilot 3 months after 9/11, it had a completely different resonance.
What awaits us out there is what troubles me.
Well, surely you don't cling to your suspicions about the Cylons.
It was about an apocalyptic attack out of the blue that devastated these worlds, and the story was about the survivors who ran away and were being pursued by their enemies into the night.
They hate us with every fiber of their existence. We love freedom.
Why do they hate us? They hate our freedoms.
Just sort of immediately thought if you did that show now, it was an opportunity to talk about the things that were happening in the world, about terrorism and fundamentalism and all kinds of things. And I just sort of thought, this is an amazing thing, I should grab at this. So I called David back on Monday and said, I'm in, let's do it.
Moore retained most of the original premise while adding a few updates to make the show more relevant for a post-9/11 world.
Battlestar Galactica was set in a distant solar system that consisted of 12 colonies and a race of robots that were created by humans called the Cylons. The Cylons eventually rose up and had a long battle with the humans.
This first Cylon war ultimately resulted in an armistice between the humans and the Cylons.
The Cylons disappeared for 40 years, and they re-emerged to launch a surprise nuclear strike against mankind.
They wiped out pretty much everybody on the 12 colonies, except for about 50,000 people who were on ships at the time. And those people gathered into a fleet led by the warship, the largest, Battlestar Galactica.
For a show set in a very distant galaxy, it was also very contemporary. You know, Battlestar Galactica really was an allegory for the War on Terror. Unlike most sci-fi shows, it could get philosophical on the one hand, but it also gave you that adrenaline rush because it had the action and the kind of immediacy.
Universal greenlit a 3-hour miniseries, which would also serve as the pilot.
This is the commander. Moments ago, this ship received word of a Cylon attack against our home worlds is underway.
Edward James Olmos signed on to play Admiral William Adama, the stoic leader of the Battlestar Galactica.
You've trained for this. You're ready for this.
Olmos had already been nominated for an Academy Award for his powerful performance in the 1989 drama Stand and Deliver.
There's something going on here that nobody is talking about.
But the 57-year-old actor was probably best known for playing Lieutenant Castillo in the 80s mega hit Miami Vice.
Don't ever come up to my face like this again, detective.
What got me in it was the writing. I think what got us all was the writing. It was brilliant from the first page.
Mary McDonnell landed the role of Laura Roslin, the Secretary of Education who suddenly becomes president after the Cylons wipe out every other high-ranking government official.
I accept the office of the president of the 12 colonies of Cobalt.
The 42-year-old actress was a 2-time Oscar nominee for her work in Passion Fish and Dances with Wolves.
I was not very old when I came to be with the people.
When we're first introduced to Laura Roslin, we find out she's been diagnosed with breast cancer, which she decides to keep secret.
I'm afraid the tests are positive. The mass is malignant.
It's a very human element to keep us grounded in this science fiction world.
The same thing, I read the script. I fell in love with all of the characters. I mean, that was really important to me. I attached to these people in the first read-through. And I thought, well, what would the experience of having to try and be the president to these beloved characters? You just fall in love with them instantly.
So you'll be in charge of the fleet. Military decisions stay with me.
Yes. One of the great conflicts of the show is sort of the ideologies between Roslin and Adama.
It's really kind of like a hawk and dove dynamic.
You planning to stage a military coup?
Adama will do anything it takes, including force, to protect the human race, and Roslin really wants to protect the humanity of what's left of the human race, and those two kind of philosophies clash.
Miss Roslin, my primary objective at the present time is to repair the Galactica and continue to fight.
Well, she wanted to stay with the governmental understanding of our society and keeping ourselves as human beings together. And I was saying, we're in a war, and we're going to go down fighting. I'm sorry, but there's nothing left, you know.
I honestly don't know why I have to keep telling you this, but the war is over.
It hasn't begun yet.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. I thought, well, could this be one of those things where you just fight like cats and dogs and then you fall in love? Yeah, well, but I didn't know if it was.
You can run if you'd like. This ship will stand and it will fight.
It was we were so opposed in fundamental ways that it was hot. But you know, that's how storytelling goes. Those things turn around.
Firstly, I suppose that I should thank you for deciding to bring us home.
Listen, you were right. I was wrong.
I called my dad and I said, I got a role. You'd be so happy. It's Battlestar Galactica. And he was like, that's great. Who are you playing? And I was like, Starbuck. And he went, what?
Starbuck, don't you realize what's happened?
Attention all colonial units. Cylon attack underway.
I'll be right there.
In 2003, Universal greenlit a miniseries reboot of Battlestar Galactica, with writer-producer Ron Moore at the helm.
Mark II. Haven't seen one of these in about 20 years.
Edward James Olmos and Mary McDonnell were on board to play the leads, Admiral Adama and President Roslin, while the rest of the cast was comprised of talented but lesser-known actors.
The strength of the series in large part rests on that cast that we put together, and it's an amazing cast.
I'm here. And I'm going to participate in this ceremony. There wasn't anything in my orders about having any heart-to-heart chats with the old man.
31-year-old Jamie Bamber landed the role of Admiral Adama's son, Captain Lee Adama, better known by his call sign, Apollo.
Broken formation, razzle dazzle. Don't let them use their targeting computers.
Apollo has a strained relationship with his father because he believes that his father is responsible for his brother's death, since he pushed him to become a pilot when he wasn't ready.
Zach did not belong in that plane.
Apollo is also really close to Starbuck because she used to date his brother.
What's the charge this time?
Striking a superior asshole.
Starbuck, aka Captain Kara Thrace, was played by 24-year-old Katee Sackhoff.
I called my dad and I said, I got a role. You'd be so happy. It's Battlestar Galactica. And he was like, that's great. Who are you playing? And I was like, Starbuck. And he went, what? And he's like, do me a favor. Go to Blockbuster. Rent it and watch it and call me back. And I was like, okay, cool.
Starbuck, don't you realize what's happened?
Oh yeah, sure, I realize what happened.
And I went, oh,
I knew it would be kind of controversial because you were changing the gender of one of the lead characters of the original. You know, a lot of people forget that the original series, the two leads were Apollo and Starbuck. It wasn't about Adama, the commander of the Galactica. It was about the two lead fighter pilots. So when I was looking at the show initially, that first weekend that I watched it, one of the very first questions was, well, what do you do with Apollo and Starbuck?
Well, that's lucky, isn't it, Starbuck? Yeah, that's a real stroke of luck.
You got the good arrow guy and then the rogue friend who smokes cigars and chases girls and gambles. I don't know what to do with that. How do you make that interesting today? And somewhere along the line, my brain just went, well, what if Starbuck was a woman?
Yes, sir.
There were starting to be female pilots in the war against terror at that time. You were starting to see women in combat for the first time. So it was a fairly new thing to see that dramatized. And I realized once you made Starbuck a woman, but still had the same basic qualities, the rogue, the wiseacre, the one that was always gonna get in trouble, the one that would throw a punch too early. That was a character I hadn't seen before. So I thought, oh, this is great, let's definitely do that. And then that became like a whole thing in and of itself. How dare you, you're destroying, Battlestar Galactica, and this is blasphemy, and so on. And you know what? It just helped us. The controversy helped us. It helped propel the show. It played into marketing and promotion. I was glad. I was glad to stoke it. And yeah, keep arguing about it. Let's keep talking about it. Get more of these stories in the press.
You are beyond insane!
Guys, I can't die. When this body's destroyed, my memory, my consciousness will be transmitted to a new one.
30-year-old Tricia Helfer was cast as the seductive Cylon known only as Number 6.
You mean there's more of it like you?
There are 12 models. I'm number 6.
Number 6 might be a weird name to you at first, but it's a reference to the fact that she's the 6th model of these new humanoid Cylons. In the universe of Battlestar Galactica, the Cylons created humanoid Cylons, but they only created 12 models. Number 6 is the 6th one. There are 11 others. They all look human.
So what did you like being a robot?
I did like being a robot. Actually, my character, I think, out of all the characters, was the one that they hadn't quite figured out. Ron Moore had this tomb full of everything, from every department of the style of filming, the documentary style of filming, to backstories for all the main characters, everything. I mean, he gave Edward James Olmos like a 4-page backstory, and he gave Number 6, the machine as woman. One sentence, one short sentence. And I went to him, I'm like, you gave me nothing. And he goes, I haven't figured out everything about the Cylons yet, and you're the known Cylon at this point, so I can't give you much more than that.
When we were initially pitching the show, one of the first questions was, well, what are we going to do with the Cylons? How are they going to look in the TV series? In the original series, they were stunt guys in chrome suits, right, walking around. We knew that the modern audience wasn't going to accept that look, that they would want something really, really cool. So if we were going to put somebody in a suit, it would have to be really sophisticated and ultra cool and very, very expensive. So how many of these suits could we actually build for the TV show realistically? Probably one. So that's not going to work. So then you start saying, well, what else can we do? Well, what if they look like people?
The Cylons have the ability to mimic human form. They look like us now.
At first, we weren't in love with that idea because it felt too redolent of like Blade Runner, and people had seen that before. But the more we wrestled with it, the more we started to sort of think, okay, well, let's just talk about it for a minute. Why would they look like people? They used to be robots. Why would they look like people now? Well, maybe they evolved themselves toward the human form. Well, why would they do that? Well, if they were created by humans, maybe they want to now emulate humans. Okay, that's starting to get interesting.
If the Cylons look like us, then any one of us can be a Cylon.
But they still want to kill the humans? Why do they want to kill the humans if they look like them? Well, maybe they see themselves as the children of humanity and they want to kill their parents. Okay, now we're into some interesting territory here, and it just it opened the whole show up, but it just came out of the dollars and cents like production problem.
I'm not a Cylon!
Maybe, but we just can't take that chance.
I'm not a Cylon!
I wasn't happy to be Gaius Baltar. I didn't even really want to audition. I was like, is this kids' TV? When I went to one of my auditions, one of the many auditions, it's probably why I had so many auditions.
What do you hear?
Nothing but the rain!
Grab your gun and bring the cat in.
In 2003, Universal greenlit Battlestar Galactica as a 4-hour miniseries.
Thank you. Thank you all. It's an honor.
Creator Ron Moore rebooted the franchise with a modern take on the 25-year-old premise.
The biggest innovation was basically the characters. He wanted grounded, realistic, very flawed human characters who are struggling to survive this enormous cataclysm.
They were all difficult roles to cast, but some of them just came quicker than others.
Today, we're talking with Dr. Gaius Baltar.
The role of the brilliant Dr. Gaius Baltar went to 33-year-old James Callis.
It always makes me laugh because he was first known as the friend of Bridget in Bridget Jones's Diary.
No, you're not going to sing.
Probably not that fantastic, sadly, no, but still pretty good. We've decided we're going to take you to Paris for the weekend so you can forget about everything, particularly forget about Mark Darcy.
You either love or hate Gaius. He is part of the reason why the human population is basically wiped out. He's the one who gets seduced by number 6 and ends up giving her the defense system codes.
You knew I wanted access to the defense mainframe.
Wait a minute. The defense mainframe?
Yet he's also someone who has such a huge ego that he doesn't feel too guilty about what he does.
I remember you telling me once that guilt was something small people feel when they run out of excuses for their behavior.
As the show continues, Baltar keeps having these visions of 6, and you get the impression that she's not really there. She's all in his mind.
So I'm only in your head?
She kind of represents this angelic spirit animal for him, and she kind of guides him through his journey. She's almost like his conscience or embodiment of guilt. And it was sort of a great device for a TV show because it was a great way to give a character an inner dialogue that we, the audience, could pay attention to.
Doctor.
Yes. To be honest, really, which I suppose is the point, I wasn't happy to be Gaius Baltar. I didn't even really want to audition to be Gaius Baltar. I think that's because John Colicos had done such an awesome job in the original.
I should think that's highly inadvisable in view of the delicacy of our situation. You're quite right, Baltar.
I grew up watching the original. I didn't want to be the same kind of thing. And I didn't understand when I read it that number 6 was in my head. And I couldn't work out how they were going to film it or what, when you read the script. So actually, I thought that bit of it was, I was like, is this kids' TV? When I went to one of my auditions, one of the many auditions, probably why I had so many auditions. And they were like, no, it's not at all. It's going to be very serious. And it was only after actually seeing the miniseries, then I started to feel truly excited and truly lucky. I didn't even realize how lucky I was to be involved in this thing that I almost didn't want to be in because I didn't understand the way in which it was going to be done.
33-year-old Aaron Douglas co-starred as the moody mechanic, Chief Galen Tyrol.
Chief Galen Tyrol is head of maintenance. Basically, he's the one looking after all of the ships. He's the one who's always exasperated when people like Starbuck and Lee come back with battered ships that he has to fix with his crew.
Lieutenant, what did you do to my Viper?
He absolutely loves his crew. He also is in love with Boomer. At the start of the series, they are together.
The gimbal is broken.
Shut up, sir.
Boomer, Lieutenant Sharon Valeri, was played by 30-year-old Grace Park.
Boomer is one of my favorite characters from Battlestar Galactica. She is a sleeper Cylon in that she doesn't know that she's a Cylon until she's activated.
This isn't happening.
We love you, Sharon. And we always will.
I went actually originally for Duala, who Candice McClure got in the end, and when I came back, they were like, yeah, come back with Starbuck. I had to I wrapped my head around this other character, which was fine, but in the end, they gave me Boomer, and I was like, who the hell is that? Didn't want her whatsoever. And because I read the pilot for Starbuck, I didn't even realize that Boomer was a Cylon, and until way later in the game, and I looked at Ron and I was like, did you change this? It's like, at some point, did you change this? And it was just always sitting there. I just never figured it out.
Rounding out the cast was 55-year-old Michael Hogan as Colonel Saul Tigh, the executive officer and second in command of the Battlestar.
The crew doesn't hate the XO, then he's not doing his job.
He is drunk. He is run down. He's fatigued. He has lost his wife. By the time that Battlestar Galactica begins, he wants to be off the ship.
The XO, when he starts off, I loved it. The first opening scene of him holding onto the wall.
Colonel?
I mean, you talk about a character. Michael Hogan is a brilliant, brilliant actor.
In December 2003, the reboot of Battlestar Galactica aired as a 2-part, 3-hour miniseries on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Are you alive?
Yes.
Prove it.
4 million viewers tuned in, making it the most watched cable miniseries of the year.
That's as close as you get, okay? Let's just settle down here.
Good enough for the network to order a 13-episode first season.
Earth will become our new home.
The miniseries for Battlestar Galactica was a huge success. I think one of the reasons was that it was rooted in reality, even though it was, set on a ship in space and Cylons and all that, it was still very much a human show dealing with human problems.
The cast is terrific, the writing is fantastic, the set design is great. They really had a strong sense of where they were going and what they were doing.
I think that it did so well because it was reflective of the times. 9/11, the Patriot Act, sleeper cells.
They could be sleeper agents programmed to perfectly impersonate human beings until activation.
It took a lot of current social issues and brought them to a television audience.
I'm human!
There was a lot of praise for the show about examining those issues. The network really never pushed back on that kind of stuff, and we just got free rein to sort of go and do anything we wanted.
The investigation into the suicide bombing aboard Galactica and how it was allowed to occur has come to a close.
Because I think it was science fiction, and it gave people a certain safety. We weren't out talking about Republicans and Democrats or Al-Qaeda or Iraq and Afghanistan. We were talking about Cylons and the colonials.
You've lost sight of the purpose of the law, to protect its citizens, not persecute them. Whatever we are, whatever's left of us, we're better than that.
And so it allowed the audience the distance to sort of think about the deeper themes, to think about the ethics of what was happening, and you could not help but draw the analogy to what was happening in the world around you. But we just kind of got a free pass because it was science fiction.
It was like in the first week or something that Eddie sat us all down as the cast and he went, the show's going to go for 5 years. I thought Eddie was raving mad. I thought Eddie was like, I was like, 5 years? I may not be here 5 minutes. What's this guy talking about?
Earth will become our new home.
After the success of the miniseries, Universal greenlit Battlestar Galactica for a 13-episode first season.
Best thing we can do is get this ship into the fight.
The series premiered in January 2005 and quickly became one of the highest-rated shows on the Sci-Fi Channel.
The show did really well at the time because it wasn't just a sci-fi show. It was so grounded in reality. It brought all these real-world, relatable elements in, but also because it had a vast array of diverse characters.
I think the audiences were drawn to the characters. I think you can almost always say that a successful TV show is about the success of the characters.
Go!
That they're not tuning in each week for some radical new plot twist. They are tuning in to see what happens to Adama this week, what's going to happen to Laura this week. You fall in love with these people in your home and you want to watch them again and again and see what's the next chapter of their lives.
So say we all.
The very first thing we ever shot as a group was the So Say We All scene.
So say we all! So say we all!
That was the very first moment on screen for me. And for you too.
Yeah,
and all of us.
For all of us.
We're a long way from home. Limited supplies, limited fuel, no allies, and now, no hope.
I will say that it was defined by some radical choices that Ed made intuitively as Adama.
Where shall we go? What shall we do?
He brought this forceful edge to a situation that could have been rather sentimental, and he just didn't let it happen. And it just kind of changed the molecules in the room.
I know where it is. Earth. The most guarded secret we have.
And because of that, the rest of us had an extraordinary moment to react to.
So say we all. So say we all. So say we all. So say we all.
So it kind of changed the tone right out of the gate, given Eddie's performance. That's what I remember.
So say we all.
When I first met Eddie, I was pretty scared, to be honest. But it was like in the first week or something that Eddie sat us all down as the cast and he went, "The show's gonna go for 5 years. 5 years. Every episode is going to be like a movie. Keep your powder dry. We're in here for the long haul." And at the time when Eddie said that, I remember like, it was a bit like the So Say We All speech on the thing, except it was in the trailer. And I thought Eddie was raving mad. I thought Eddie was like, I was like, 5 years? I may not be here 5 minutes. What's this guy talking about? And everything that Eddie said turned out to be true. And actually that speech at the beginning from Eddie, who is Admiral Adama, was so galvanizing. It's like at the time you didn't realize how important something like that is.
Execute jump.
I think my favorite episode is still 33, which was the first episode of the first season.
All right, you know the drill, people. Scatter formation.
It's an epic first episode to the series. It starts with the Battlestar Galactica and its fleet on the run. And not just on the run, but on the run every 33 minutes.
Forgive me for being rude, but wake up, all right?
They can't sleep. Every 33 minutes, they have to jump again to a new location and hope the Cylons don't follow.
Got another idea for the next cycle.
I mean, it just challenges all of the characters to not only stay awake, but to stay hopeful that they can get out of the cycle of every 33 minutes running away from an enemy that can murder them all.
The Cylons will be here any second. If we're gonna do this, just do it.
Eventually, they realize that the Cylons are figuring out their location because of a passenger ship. And that ends up posing the question, do you destroy that passenger ship?
It's a civilian ship.
Playing around with time and, bouncing back and forth between a lot of characters, a very challenging format.
There's no choice. It's either them or us.
And I felt like if we could pull this off, then we could really be courageous and bold in the series going forward.
Do it.
With this episode, just hit the ground running.
Mark.
And I think for most people, if they were watching it, they were hooked.
34-year-old Michael Trucco joined the cast in season 2 as Ensign Samuel Anders, the former athlete turned leader of the Resistance.
I'm Anders.
Samuel T. Anders?
Yeah, that's right.
He plays a really important role in Battlestar Galactica in later seasons. He was a sports star back in the day before the Cylons re-attacked, and Sam Anders eventually becomes Starbuck's love interest. The two of them get together in the series, and they carry on a relationship.
Lighten up a little bit. It's only the end of the world.
You could tell when a new person showed up and just belonged there. And when you felt it, you sort of fought for them because you were like, you should be here. Like this, it makes sense. And that's sort of what it was like with Trucco. Like within like the first 2 episodes, I was like,
this guy needs to not go anywhere.
How does a professional pyramid team survive a nuclear holocaust?
We were in the mountains when the Cylons attacked, high altitude training.
I liked him. It had nothing to do really with the characters. It was more about like, who do you really, yeah, I mean, his acting is but you really sort of are like, who do you want to be with on a daily basis?
We could use some professional advice.
I had, early in the process, initially auditioned for the role of Apollo. And rumor has it that I got very, very not close at all to getting that role. Past the pre-read, I'm pretty sure. But coming up a year later, it was just in for this character called Anders that was meant to meet the girl, sleep with the girl, fall in love with the girl, and then get kicked in the ass out the door by the girl. And that was the arc of the character, was just sort of a deflection from the Starbuck and Apollo love story. I was going to be the third leg in that triangle for just a couple of episodes.
Mission to accomplish.
So what?
Mission.
And something incredible happened. The majority of the people hated my character. They really did. They hated me, and I think that fueled Ron more than anything. He's like, oh, really? Oh, you don't like Anders? Well, watch
He's
this.
coming back now.
Exactly. Thank you. I mean, talk about the chat rooms in the early days of the internet. People are mean, man. They're really mean.
They're still mean.
Yeah, and they said some horrible things, and that just kind of fueled the storyline.
Everyone's a critic.
And then it became, well, you're going to come back for another episode. I said, oh, cool, I'm doing 3. And they go, it might be 2, could be 4, but 5 at the most, not more than 6, 7, could be 8 episodes, and then just the first 4 episodes of the next season, but that's it. And then it just kept growing and growing and growing, and suddenly I found myself in this club, in their sandbox, and getting to play with this family, and they treated me like one of their own from day one. So I am truly grateful to get to sit here among these people and call myself part of this family.
He's got to get that fracking gimbal locked or I'll have his ass.
Oh, I just said this is a brilliant opportunity to say f over and over again. Every week, I'm gonna just say it. It's gonna be frack me, frack you, mother fracker, frack this, frack off.
Years after Battlestar Galactica began its epic journey, the cast was reunited at the ATX Television Festival in front of a live audience that included some of the show's biggest fans.
A lot of really great questions have been asked, and I have a very simple one for Katee. What do you hear, Starbuck?
Oh my gosh, people do this all the time. And I never answer. But nothing but the rain.
Grab your gun and bring in the cat.
He's got to get that fracking gimbal locked or I'll have his ass.
So a lot of people don't realize that the word frack was actually in the original series.
Holy frack! No frack!
But not to the degree that you used it. Can you talk about the way you sort of ramped that up?
Oh, I just said this is a brilliant opportunity to say f over and over again. Every week, I'm gonna just say it. It's gonna be frack me, frack you, mother fracker, frack this, frack off.
For frack's sake!
Frack me.
The world is frack.
Stop fracking thinking it! Frack!
No fracking idea.
Frack that! Let's go! Frack it! No!
Frack you.
This is just a license to kill, so I'm just gonna do it over and over again.
Yeah, things are pretty fracked up most days.
Yeah, you once said that they made you and Tricia kiss on the first day on set to break the ice. Is that possibly true?
Broke a lot of ice. Yeah, that's not quite true.
No, that's not quite true.
That's not quite true.
I made us kiss.
I'm gonna let Tricia tell that story.
I did. First day of filming, we're doing in Baltar's house when he hears the news and the spine glowing scene, and I had a particular outfit that had a lot of really fine snaps and patent leather bra and panties. Now, I don't know if you know, but patent leather kind of sticks and doesn't really do what you want it to do.
Miss me?
So we had to practice. Like, James had to practice disrobing me.
I've got to say, black plastic underwear.
It's not easy.
It's a bit of a handful.
So I think we were getting a little bit, he was getting nervous, I was getting nervous. So I finally just said, James, there's a basement, let's go downstairs. said, okay, let's practice this. Let's practice the snaps. Let's practice the clasps. Let's practice this. And then I just went, let's kiss. So we were downstairs in the basement, and I just planted a kiss on him.
It sounds really crazy, but actually it was a really good move because we were both really self-conscious.
Do you love me? Are you serious?
Essentially, it was like a rehearsal, and then I think as well there was the realization that we really trusted each other.
It's so hot.
Was there any moment in particular where you brought something that you were proud of that was kind of your own bringing to the table?
I was a really good pyramid player prior to being on the show. Coincidentally, which is amazing, it was a little hobby of mine, pyramid. Wow, is that the best you can do? There's no such thing as pyramid. That's my favorite. Our first, remember when we were out there like, so you guys just shoot around. We're like, shoot around what? This game doesn't exist.
We created the game like in an hour.
We had to.
You and I, literally, with the stunt coordinator, they were like, it'd look really cool if I dove. And they're like, yeah, Katee, dive. Why would you dive? I don't know, because maybe I need to get the ball over there.
Yeah, throw a miniature volleyball into a basket made out of like rusty iron that was on a wall, and it just didn't. Go ahead, shoot around, and we'll just shoot.
But make it semi-sexual, so you have to touch, right? Like there has to be touching.
Every hip check will create an erection. You're like, okay. I guess that's part of the game.
You're falling in love.
Exactly.
Go.
Thanks.
Who's most like their character on the show, and I guess who is not like their character on the show?
Eddie's the Admiral.
Eddie's the Admiral.
He signs off as the Admiral.
We can all agree on that.
I think every single one of us was inside of our character, and we all let it out, but everybody. I mean, this woman was amazing. Starbuck, I mean, forget it. And she was very, very committed from the very first moment.
Yes, come in.
I had this one moment with Eddie in episode 4 where I was just joking around, because I joke around so much on set. And he walked up to me and he said, if you tried this much, you'd be so good.
Zach failed basic flight, and I should have flunked him, but I didn't.
And I was like, wow, okay.
The bottom line is that your son didn't have the chops to fly a Viper, and it killed him.
And he goes, just sit here, think about it for a second. Like literally think about what's going on instead of be Katee. Because once you figure out how to do this, you can be Katee. But you got to figure this out first. And I was like, okay.
Because I made a mistake.
And we did the next take. And I literally, for the first time in my entire career, I just started sobbing when I was telling him that I had killed Zach.
Because I was so in love with him, and I let that get in the way of doing my job.
And when I was walking out of the room and I put my hands on my head to cover myself, it was because me as Katee, but so in that moment, was literally sobbing because I couldn't, it was the first time I'd lived as another person, and I just couldn't take what had just like gone on between me and this person that I loved. And Eddie came back out and he goes, now you can go back to being Katee. 'Cause now you know how to do it. And that's Eddie. Like he just did that without even really trying, and he taught me how to act in 30 seconds.
Good morning, Starbuck. What do you hear?
Nothing but the rain.
Grab your gun and bring in the cat.
Boom, boom, boom.
The toughest was, of course, when she passes. It was just very difficult. That was the hardest moment in the entire show for me.
There is a line running down this deck. Volunteers, move to the starboard side.
After 6 years, 75 episodes, and 19 Emmy nominations, Battlestar Galactica finally came to an end on March 20th, 2009.
We didn't really talk about what the end of the show was going to be for quite a while, well into the series. It was, when people would ask me, the writers would say, so when does this show take place? Is it in the future? Is it in the present, in the past? And I would just say, we're not there yet, I don't know, let's not even deal with it.
Let there be no illusions. This is likely to be a one-way trip.
In the emotional 2-hour series finale, the Cylons are defeated.
The war ends here. Agreed.
And the Colonials reach their ultimate destination, planet Earth.
So not only does Earth exist and they've found it, but it contains human beings with DNA that they can mate with and repopulate the species.
I came across a grave a couple of clicks back and ran some tests. Their DNA is compatible with ours.
Meaning we can breed with them.
You got a one-track mind, Doc.
Cylons are gone, humanity will survive. The two major objectives for Battlestar Galactica have been achieved by the end of the finale.
My take on the finale is that regardless of your feelings about it intellectually, because there's a lot of things in terms of the story that you can kind of take issue with or pick apart, it works really well emotionally.
It's a very beautiful world.
Laura Roslin succumbs to cancer, which has kind of been lingering for the entire show. So it's this bittersweet, kind of sweet and sour ending where we get the triumph we wanted, but there is some loss.
So much.
The toughest was, of course, when she passes. In respect to storyline and story and the whole thing, it was just very difficult. That was the hardest moment in the entire show for me. It was just very truthful.
So the rest of the survivors decide to go their separate ways and spread out across the globe and repopulate the species.
I love putting them on Earth and sending them off to the four winds, and I just thought that was a great way to end the series.
What do you hear, Starbuck?
Nothing but the rain.
They had found their new home, and now this Battlestar Galactica story was over, and they were all going to move into a different chapter of their lives.
I saw some terrain that looked good for cultivation.
Cultivation?
Yes. I know about farming.
I know a bit about farming. The fact is, he comes from farming stock that he's been trying to deny his whole life. So it had massive resonance. And I think, it wasn't something that I tried to effect. I just couldn't really stop crying as I said it.
I know.
It reminded me of all of the people and the huge adventure that we had been on. And it was like something finally got through to him. He wasn't so smug. He had been slightly redeemed. He was going to be a bit more natural and less artificial in some way. I'm just imagining after that shot, Guy stumbles and like Six slaps him and like, come on guys, don't be a silly idiot. It's like, I wonder what their relationship would actually be like. Like, come on, stop letting me down. I thought you said you could build a fire. I'm trying, Six, I'm really trying.
As this kind of epilogue to the entire show, we see 150,000 years in the future, a modern-day New York City. And we hear the news broadcast.
At a scientific conference this week at the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, the startling announcement was made that archaeologists believe they have found fossilized remains of a young woman who may actually be mitochondrial Eve.
I wanted the characters to be connected to us in some way, that the end of the series says in some way we are related to these people that you've been watching, that they're part of us. Okay, where is the history and where's the point in history where there could have been a common ancestor for every human being on Earth? Oh, it's mitochondrial Eve. What year is that? Oh, it's 150,000 years ago. That's where we're going.
Mitochondrial Eve is the name scientists have given to the most recent common ancestor for all human beings now living on Earth.
So we see Ron D. Moore kind of in a fun cameo reading National Geographic, and it's this big reveal.
She lived in what is now Tanzania, over 150,000 years ago.
Along with her Cylon mother and human father.
So mitochondrial Eve turns out to be Boomer's child, which was half Cylon.
Daddy is a great hunter.
No, Mommy's gonna teach you how to hunt.
No.
Real hunting.
And this was crazy for fans because they got this last twist where not only did the show take place in the distant past, the entire human race as we know it is part Cylon.
I was blown away. I never expected that at the very end there'd be a twist like that.
It's been 8 years since the final episode, but the Battlestar Galactica fan base is stronger than ever.
One of the things that I find to be extraordinary is that what I get from the fans is how many people are watching it today. That surprises me almost more than almost anything else, because there are more people watching it today than watched it when it was on.
The fans are extraordinarily clever with their ability to reflect back to us what we actually gave them. I mean, I know more about what Battlestar gave to the world through what the fans continued to send. They're always constructing mini narratives around the meaning of this show for them. It's really quite beautiful.
The whole thing for me was so magical in so many ways because I didn't anticipate nor expect it nor realize it in the moment. I just thought I was having fun.
This is the best usage of television I've ever been a part of in my life, and I've done some good shows in my life. I've really good ones. But nothing got close to this.
There's a part of me that regrets stopping when we did, but it also feels like we got off stage at the right moment. You always want to leave them wanting more, and I think there's a general feeling that, you know, fans certainly would have loved to see some more episodes or another full season potentially, so I think we did end it at just the right time.
Surprise me! And I think it's only appropriate that we go out on a certain phrase.
We would like to just make sure that you know that we love you guys for coming here and supporting this. So say we all. So say we all. So say we all.
So say we all. So say we all. So say we all.
So say we all.